Hello, everyone. Today is the time I'm going to talk about how I walk through Germany, and the main two topics or like main two stops will be pretty much the focus of this talk. The first one being Berlin and the other being Hamburg. So let's go on with it. Well, after I crossed the border from Poland, I took a walk to Berlin, and by the time I arrived, it was already late evening. And the first night, I couldn't really find any couch surfing or anything. Just basically no place where I could stay overnight. So I was looking for a hostel, and I finally found one. But nothing really happened. But the next day was really interesting because I basically thought like, okay, I can't really seem to find anything interesting in here, so I'll just pass through. And I passed through the center and headed north. And so I went around this place like Alexanderplatz and others. But I still wanted to see some architecture, so it's not like I would just have this tunnel vision and keep going straight. And I guess this kind of idea paid off because I actually came across a building, which you can see on the picture right now. And I was really struck by this word that said innovation. And I was like, wow, it looks very interesting because the building on the outside didn't really look any special. And so I went in and I found out that it was basically like I don't really want to say like a museum, but kind of like an exhibition of this company called Ottobock, which makes like human prosthetics, among other things. And as I walked through this building, through this exposition, I actually immersed on the other side, and there was like this really nice, like glassy open space, which was actually a co-working place. And there were plenty of different startups in there. It was called Fab Lab Berlin, and it was more focused on people who do things, who want to create products, like actual physical things. And there were people working with, like laser cutters, 3D printers, and all kinds of stuff that that you would need a workshop for. And so everybody who had some idea could actually go there with their startup or just with their idea and whatever, and just create real things. I met this guy who made his own flying drone just from different parts, and he actually put it all together. And so I met some really nice people in there who showed me around, introduced me to everybody, and we had fun hanging out together. Especially with Ahmad and Sylvester. And these guys actually made me like these two like plates that I later on put on my backpack with Swedish and Czech flags. So it was really nice of them. Uh, so yeah, I mean, this was a place where I actually returned later on, and I really grew to like it a lot. But also, I found out about another really interesting place in the city, which was called Seabase. And this was sort of a co-working. I don't really know how exactly to call it. It looked like a sci-fi space station, which was actually underground in a building. As you can see on the picture, most of the decorations were made by the actual members. So it was really like handcrafted place where you felt like you are in a different world or maybe in the outer space. This really like retro sci-fi look. And I was really lucky because normally they don't let people in unless they are members. But somehow I managed to get in there, and yeah, I got the full scope. And it was really, really nice. It was run by this guy called Rudy, and he actually even helped me out with the place to stay overnight. So yeah, um, I had a really good experience in Berlin overall. And so I stayed there for a couple of days, and later on I went north of Berlin to Oranienburg, which I read about in a book about Catherine the Great, who ruled Russia. And that book mentioned it a couple of times. So I was very interested in seeing this castle, and it was really beautiful. So that was a really good experience for me. And if you like seeing castles or maybe like these summer house, I'm not really sure like how it would be in like maybe like a palace actually. Yeah, so Oranienburg is a really nice place to go. After this, I went through the countryside, headed towards Hamburg. So it took me a couple of days, but along the way, I noticed that these villages, they are not just like, like modern and tidy, nice places, but they also have these historical buildings that make a really unique atmosphere to them. And sadly, I don't really see that many of them in Czech Republic. Uh, Sometimes I notice buildings that are kind of interesting, but they are not very well taken care of. In Germany, they pretty much look like new, which was very fascinating to me. And also, I saw these wooden sculptures that were inspired by nature. I only have one photo of these, but yeah, I saw them actually pretty frequently. That people like to decorate the countryside with things like this, and I think it's really cool. And I would be happy if something like that happened also here in Czech Republic. But anyways, as I was approaching Hamburg, I actually caught my first tick. So I actually haven't noticed it until I went to a toilet when I reached a small village. Well, not very small, but a village. So I actually had to find a doctor and seek some medical help because I didn't really have any tools for tick removal, sadly. I didn't really think about that. So if you ever make some long trip across country, then make sure you have some pliers or whatever, I don't know, whatever you feel like using. It costed me a little bit of money, but it was worth it. The people were really helpful, and because I didn't really know where I would find a doctor in that place, so I had to ask around, and there was this lovely lady who actually drove me there. So I was very well taken care of, which was really good, and also my insurance was valid, so that was really cool. As I approached Hamburg, I actually went through another village, and I got a phone call from one of the guys that I met in Berlin, and he was asking me how everything went and if I was okay and so on. So I was like, yeah, it's all good. And when I finished this call, then I actually turned around and I saw this young lady approaching me. And the first thing she said was, "Are you looking for help? Do you maybe need some directions or whatever?" And I told her like, "Yeah, I actually, it's getting dark, and I will need to find some place where I can maybe stay overnight." And I wouldn't really want to like go out and sleep because I just got a tick and so on. So then she was like, "Yeah, that's okay. You can actually stay in our family house." And I to this day I'm not really sure like what really gave me away that I needed help, because I don't think I did anything special, but she somehow felt that, and that was pretty amazing. And I got to meet her family. They lived in this really nice family house, and her father still lived with them, and he was like 90, I think. He actually fought in Wehrmacht. He was part of the unit that took over Denmark. So he told me a lot of his experiences from the time. It was very cool because he spoke very little English, so I had to rely on whatever German I know. Well, I knew at the time, but I still somehow understood him. And whenever I was not sure, then I could ask the others to translate for me. But it was really cool. It was really nice of these people. I actually came back to see them some other time after I finished this whole trip. But from there, I went to Hamburg, and I actually expected that Hamburg's suburbs would look well, not really suburbs. I mean the outskirts. They would look kind of industrial, or maybe it would start small and whatever. But it didn't. It was really like this historical town that was like glued to the actual city, because I saw this really historical, as you can see on the pictures. I saw these beautiful buildings, and they were like leading me into the city further, and Hamburg was actually, I finally found couchsurfing there with this young couple who let me stay in their house. They lived in quite an expensive district, and close to the seaside. Well, not the seaside, because there's just a river, but it looked like a seaside. I mean, seriously, Elbe is like, it's really broad in Hamburg, and I actually come from a city that lies on Elbe. Here in Czech Republic, it's called Labe, and I never imagined that the river could be so huge. It would be so massive that these giant ships could actually navigate them, because Hamburg is a port. And I just sometimes in the morning, well, I stayed for like 2 or 3 days, I think. So I took this walk along the coastline, and it was amazing. I mean, like, imagine you would live in a place like this, and you couldn't even tell. Like, if you couldn't see the other bank of the river, you would pretty much think that you're in Italy or something. Although I haven't been to Italy yet, so who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I will find out. But it felt really good, because um, I really enjoyed how historical the city was. It was totally bombed down during the Second World War, and they actually rebuilt everything, and even the architecture inside was really interesting. But through these people that I stayed with, I met a whole new community, because they were part of the International Baptist Church. So I went with them to the service, and I met the other guys, and we actually went out to give food to the homeless, and that was really interesting to see how people are taken care of. It's like you see these people living on the street, but they are not doing too bad. And I saw even people who actually managed to get off the street. They maybe found a job with some delivery service, and then they rented an apartment or something. So it was really interesting. I even met some homeless people who were Czech and Slovak, so I could actually talk to them. And as far as I got to know, they were escaped convicts. Like, they actually served their time, but they didn't want to stay in Czech Republic, so they went there. And even people who weren't from the church came together to help them. I saw this this really expensive car pull over, and the guy just stepped out with his bag full of food and just gave it to them. So it was really inspiring. And by the way, speaking of churches, in Hamburg there is this building of a Church of Scientology. So if you want to check it out, you can go there. And yeah, what else is to say? With these friends that I met, we visited different events. There was this classic car exposition, for example, or there was even a film festival which was by the lake, and the screen was actually floating on water. So I haven't seen anything like that before. It was also interesting in the night when I saw these hulking cargo ships just passing by. It had entirely different atmosphere when you see these lights, and I even took a boat ride, actually. So I went around them, and when you see them up close, it's just amazing. And because I come from an inland country, I never really saw ships like this. Even those that were actually docked, which you could visit, but they had like restaurants and stuff. That was really amazing experience for me. And there was actually a tunnel under the river, which you could take and go to the other bank just basically on foot without having to go over a bridge, which was by the way free. You could just walk down this staircase, and then there were even elevators for cars, so you could just go down and then go back up again. Uh, yeah, so that was Hamburg. After that, I headed north because I wanted to go to Puttgarden, which had the ferry to Denmark. And I crossed this town called Neustadt in Holstein, and I already started seeing this marine life there. There were these boats, and sailboats and so on. And even though it was already the fall, it was already getting colder, then people still kept sailing out there. And to me, it was really something unbelievable, like seeing so much water. And yeah, I mean, when I used to live in Sweden, I saw a little bit of that, but never anything like that, really. So yeah, there were even some military boats patrolling around that I have never seen before either. And yeah, that will be my trip to Germany. From Neustadt, I pretty much headed north. Didn't take so long. Uh, there is this hotel called Hotel Dania, uh, pretty close to the actual ferry station, and they had these pirate statues. But I was actually searching around the internet. I couldn't find any information on them, why they were there, or if there were any specific people. I don't really know. So if you know, just tell me, and we'll see. I will share that information in the maybe in the description. So thank you for watching, and have a great day. Bye bye.